Nation, welcome into another edition of the Perfect Pivot podcast, which we will focus on GPP pivot plays. If you're new to watching, we will outline the chalk at each position and then give our favorite pivots off of that are going to be significantly lower owned, specifically used for tournaments. I'm your host, Justin Bales, here with Ben Hostler. How are you going? Or how are you doing, buddy?
Doing good. We got to watch Khabib go before we got on here, so that was fun.
Yeah, mall guy and then retire. I don't know if there's a better way to do it. You know what I mean?
There really isn't. There really is not.
Before we get started, you can check out all of our content at dfskarma.com. It should all be up there now. dfskarma.com/shop is where you can get our core plays package, which gets you into Discord, where you can talk to us basically at any time. We can give out help. Obviously, you get our core plays then as well. And we have the projections portals, which is all of our stats. Sam does a great job with that every week, so I would check that out as well. And we can really just dive right into quarterback instead of breaking it down kind of into multiple categories here. There's three chalk options that are all relatively similar in price, which is Russell Wilson will probably be the lowest owned of the three, Kyler Murray the highest owned, and Deshaun Watson I would assume is going to find his way right in the middle. Obviously Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson will be playing on the Sunday night game and you get the hammer, so it's kind of weird that they opted to leave the game on the slate. Like we've seen games get moved around before and get taken off. So I don't necessarily know if I like that it's on the slate because I don't want to wait until, midnight to figure out if I want or not. But it is what it is. If you exclude those three, who are some pivots? I guess literally anywhere because all three are pretty expensive. So like I don't want to just take out guys like Joe Burrow, who I know you like. So literally anywhere outside of those three, who are you looking at?
Yeah, I really like Matthew Stafford this week, kind of taking advantage of the recency bias from last week of him letting a lot of people down. Like FanDuel, especially, he was pretty chalky without looking at the ownership from last week. I know he was one of the higher owned quarterbacks on the slate, so I think people will not be inclined to play him. I think that this game definitely has a good chance to shoot out. We've talked a couple times about how much better the Falcons' offense has been this season when Julio Jones is active and in the lineup and healthy, and he will be. He's good to go this week. So I think that the Falcons have a much better chance to put up points than Jacksonville did last week. The Falcons are still giving up the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. They've given up 18 passing touchdowns, which is the most in the NFL. So I think Stafford fits with Kenny Galladay, who we talked a lot about on the Game 3 pod, who I like a lot. So Stafford is probably my favorite tournament play at quarterback.
I like that call. I was actually considering saying him, but I'm going to shift mine to Aaron Rodgers. He's sandwiched between Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray, so can't imagine he gets much ownership, but he's in one of the best games of the week. We know that Houston's defense is really bad, and I'm guessing Rodgers goes overlooked after he played in primetime last week, and it was ugly. It was really bad. He scored like 5 fantasy points. I don't think too many people used him, honestly. But anyone that's just game log watching is probably going to look at that and probably shy away, especially with Murray and Watson right around him. I do think that Aaron Rodgers could just absolutely destroy Houston, though. We watched Ryan Tannehill throw for well over 300 last week, and Rodgers has Adams back. The only big concern is that it doesn't seem like Aaron Jones is going to play. He was a late addition to the injury report, and Green Bay has been they've been very conservative with allowing injured guys to play. And David Bakhtiari's already been ruled out, which still a concern, but it just doesn't seem like Houston's really going to even come close to stopping the offense. So I think Aaron Rodgers is one of the top options here.
Yeah, I like that call. And before we move on, I do want to mention Mahomes too. I think Mahomes is really interesting on DK, where he is only what 200 or 300 more than Kyler Murray, who we're expecting to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. I saw that video clip drop today on Twitter of Mahomes talking. It must have been from last year where he's talking about how he loves to play in the snow. I don't even know if it's
Yeah.
actually going to snow there or not, but anytime you can get someone with the ceiling of Mahomes, at low ownership, I think you do it, and he's not even like expensive. He's pretty easy to fit actually, so I do think he's interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I really have no issues playing Mahomes anytime he isn't like super chalk. And then obviously if he is super chalk, you're gonna want to play him in cash anyway. But I'm fine with him basically anytime. At running back, we have two higher price guys that are just going to garner a ton of ownership. Alvin Kamara probably ends up being the highest owned player on the entire slate. And then Kareem Hunt at 6,800 is also going to be he'll be extremely high owned. Probably, I would assume the third highest owned running back, and that ownership is going to be pretty steep. So just keep it up a little bit because we have a cheap guy to go over then too. Excluding Kamara and Kareem Hunt, who are you looking at here for running backs?
Yeah, running back is interesting. I think that the chalk, when we're talking about Kamara and Kareem Hunt, I think that's good chalk, and that's chalk I want to play in tournaments this week. So I'm going to be overweight to them. Like, I'm completely fine playing them. But if we're looking for someone in that tier to pivot to, I don't mind Mike Davis at 6,600. I think that the Panthers can win this game. The only concern for me with Mike Davis is that I think the Saints are going to slow it down even more than they usually do. I think they're really going to make a point to run the ball against the Panthers with their top two pass catchers down. But Davis is only 6,600 and gives you that role that you know he's going to get pretty much all of the rushing attempts. He's going to get you targets and he's going to get you goal line work. And I'll definitely take that under 7K. I was also considering James Conner at that same price, but I'll go with Davis just because I feel confident in him catching a couple balls, especially if the Saints get up. And just I don't think anyone's going to play him.
Yeah, I really like that call. I think I would play Mike Davis over James Conner. I think I don't have too much of an issue with either, though. I'll drop slightly below where you were, and Chris Carson is one of my top GPP plays on the slate.
Yeah, I left you Carson, just so you know, because I knew
I
that was
figured
coming.
you did. He's just playing in such a good game. They have an extremely high total, almost 30 points. It's one of the highest on the slate. And Carson's kind of like the do-it-all back now. Like he's not really going to get taken off the field for any type of game script. We went over this on the Game Theory podcast. You can rewatch that on YouTube here at our channel. Man, at 6,400, it feels like it's not that often you get like a workhorse at 6,400 and one of the top offenses in a relatively solid matchup. And especially at low ownership, just because you know everyone's going to go. Maybe not everyone goes Russ, but everyone's going to look at Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And Chris Carson is just a sneaky option. He's already caught 3 touchdowns in the red zone as well. So it's not like he's not involved even in the passing game. Is there anyone else up top here that you're looking at before we drop down a little bit? I know we both really like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, especially if it's a snow game. Are you looking at really anyone? I lied. I'm going to go one more time and say Ronald Jones against the Raiders. They have a terrible run defense, and they should really just be pounding the rock with Jones. Now I'll go back to you. Anyone else you like here?
No, I'm kind of concerned with Bell looking like he's going to be in when it comes to CEH. Not that I think Bell is going to just completely take over, but I don't know. It's just an unknown, right? It's something that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't like to guess. When I know that like Kareem Hunt is a really good play, and I know that Kamara is a really good play, and I agree with you on Carson, so I think that's another really good play. It's enough to make me avoid that. No one else really in the top tier that I like on DraftKings. I think everyone else is more in the mid to low tier.
All right, cool. So we'll drop down. The chalk is going to be Gio Bernard. Good chalk, bad chalk. I feel like it's debatable. I actually initially I was like, oh man, I really don't want to play Gio Bernard. After looking at it a lot more, I'm completely fine, especially at 4,500. I have no issues playing him. It's not like an ideal matchup or anything, but he's gonna get so many targets that at 45, if he even falls into the end zone, like you're gonna be way behind if you don't end up playing him. So I'm actually moving on to I'm completely fine playing him, but we're excluding him here. Who are you looking to pivot off of him? Who I feel like most likely he's probably going to end up being the second highest owned running back, right?
Yeah, I definitely think he'll get a lot of ownership. I like Joshua Kelly at 5,100. We got this report today that they were bringing up a running back from the practice squad. I think that Justin Jackson is still going to be active for this game. He did practice in full on Friday, but there was a game where Josh Kelly was the lead back, right? Post Eckler.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though Justin Jackson ran ahead of Kelly in the last game, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do so in this game, especially when he has been banged up. And it's just a really good matchup against Jacksonville, um, allowing a ton of points to running backs. Kelly does have some upside in the passing game. His only issue has been kind of fumbles, which, he's a rookie. Never good when someone's fumbling, but him being a rookie, I don't know if that's an excuse, but that's really the only reason, or the really only con that comes with him. But he does have upside in the passing game. Really good matchup. I think the Chargers win this game, so I like him at 5,100. He's pretty cheap.
I agree with that. I'll drop 100 once again, and Antonio Gibson. He looks good when on the field. He's not playing a ton of snaps. I think he's like right around 44% on the season or something, but it seems pretty clear he's their top running back. He's also taken over the red zone role for Peyton Barber, who the fact that Peyton Barber in the beginning of the season was Washington's red zone red zone option is just absolutely mind blowing, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that. I I mean, I can't really explain it other than he's a rookie, kind of similar situation. But I don't know when Washington's bye week is, but I would be looking for Gibson. I mean, Gibson's such a good buy, like in season long leagues. Like he's eventually gonna just take over as we head down the stretch of the season.
Especially because he can do it all. But like,
Yeah.
I don't actually think J.D. McKissick is bad. So
No, he's not. He's not. I mean, dude, Gibson, like you're only gonna be able to hold him down for so long. He's
mhm.
so good in both aspects. Obviously, he played a lot of receiver in college, so he can obviously catch the ball. But yeah, I mean, you're right. When you watch him play, he just looks like like one of the best players on the field.
I mean, add in that he gets a matchup against Dallas, who if you took away last week, Kenyon Drake looked like arguably the most shot running back in the entire NFL. And then what did he do last week? Like 160 yards and 2 touchdowns or something?
Yep.
I mean, it's just a great matchup, especially since the spread I believe has shifted to Dallas -1. So it's not like either team's going to pull away and Washington's going to need to throw the ball where they can't just hand it off to Gibson. Outside of that, at 5,300, David Johnson, I think, makes sense. Green Bay really struggles against running backs. I know Houston hasn't thrown it to him a ton, but if there's like one team that you're going to throw the ball to the running back against, it's probably Green Bay. Uh, so I think the upside's there for David Johnson. And after week one, he's looked not great. He's still getting a ton of usage. And that's more or less what we look for at 5,300. Usage, matchup, and low ownership just puts David Johnson, especially in what should be one of the highest scoring games of the week, it just puts him in a really good spot.
Yeah, I like that call a lot, and I want all the pieces of that game. So you won't convince me that that's a bad play.
So if we move to wide receiver, there's a lot of options that are going to get ownership. I mean, like Devontae Adams is going to get some, but it doesn't seem like he's going to get a ridiculous amount. So I'm just kind of going to outline the top guys that are probably going to garner the most ownership. We're going to eliminate them and then give like your top 2 or 3 uh, pivots that you like in tournaments. First, Tre'Quan Smith at 4,000 is pretty close to a lock for most, I would assume. The only thing that would stop you, I think, from playing him is the fact that Gio Bernard's so cheap, so I don't know if you necessarily have to. We can take out both Seattle wide receivers, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They're both going to garner ownership. I do believe Lockett will be higher owned. And then Terry McLaurin and Keenan Allen are right around the same price. They're both going to get ownership. If you just want to take out a few other guys, Kenny Galladay will garner some, Devontae Adams will garner some, and I'm sure Robbie Anderson's going to get a bit. So try to get rid of all those guys and let me know who you're looking at now.
All right, before I give my pick for my pivot, I know that this is an NFL DFS Week 7 podcast, but you and I both play a lot of Dynasty. We are big college football guys. Obviously, we do a lot of season-long stuff. This is from Matt Zenitz on Twitter about 15 minutes ago. Nick Saban told CBS that Jalen Waddle is out for the year due to the ankle injury that he suffered on the first play of the game today. So we'll pour one out for Jalen Waddle. That is.
Do you think he's actually
I don't
hurt,
know.
or do you think he's just stopping?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they put him. I think he got in an ambulance. Like,
I saw he got carried off. I didn't see
yeah,
after that.
I think he got in an ambulance from what I saw. But I was like half watching the game and half watching UFC, so I wasn't really paying attention. But pour one out for him if he is hurt. But my pivot, I don't think this guy's gonna be a secret. And it's Stefon Diggs. But like he's not gonna be a secret with John Brown out. But 7K against the Jets. He's around that price on FanDuel as well. This is another guy. I've talked about Kenny Galladay's remarkable floor this season. This is another guy with an extremely high floor that no one is bringing that aspect of his game up, right? This has historically kind of been a boom bust level player when it comes to DFS when he was on Minnesota, but his floor on DraftKings has been 14 points this season. Obviously, the Jets are not a good defense, and I think the Bills are going to easily be able to put up points in this spot. And I actually like the chances of this game shooting out with how banged up the Bills' defense is. Maybe not shooting out, but I think the Jets will be able to put up some points and force Buffalo not to just deflate the ball in the second half. So I like Diggs a lot at 7K. I think he has a floor and a ceiling at that price tag.
I like it. I am not going to try to convince you off of it. I'm going to go slightly higher here with Calvin Ridley.
I almost went Calvin Ridley. I would have just completely cock blocked you, dude.
Yeah, I would. There's so many guys that I would have just straight up pivoted to. I think Calvin Ridley is honestly one of my top options. I'm similar to Diggs. He's got the floor. He's got the ceiling. He has 18 plus in every game this year, excluding the Green Bay game. He came into that banged up, didn't he?
Yeah. So he was really banged up in that game that he had the 0 in. Who was that against?
That was against Green Bay.
Yeah. So that's the game that he said the week after that, he said that he was legitimately like a game time decision, and he only played because Julio was so banged up. And then like the next week, he's like, I feel good now. But he's like in that game that he had a 0 in, he said he only played because Julio was also really banged up, or he would not have played.
I'll add to it too. I watched the game. I'm sure most of us watched the game. I think it was a primetime game.
It was Sunday or Monday night. I think it was Monday night.
If my memory serves correctly, Matt Ryan missed him on 2 deep touchdowns that he was wide open for.
I mean, that would not surprise me.
So if you just change a stat line to 2 for, even if we just say they were 40, I know that the one was like 80 yards or something, I'm pretty sure. But even if he had like 2 for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, it's an elite game then.
Yeah.
Tons of air yards. He's getting tons of red zone looks. Calvin Ridley is one of the best fantasy options, and it's a little surprising to me, if we're being honest, that he gets a matchup against Detroit and he's not like one of the highest owned. I understand it with Julio being back. Julio's going to get his, but they've already proven they're going to play well together. And I get that there's so many other elite matchups. Like, I feel like this is the week where there's going to be like 60 different wide receivers that score like 20 plus fantasy points. Like, it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many high over-unders. You would expect that this slate will be really high scoring, obviously.
Is there anyone like super cheap that you would look to move off of Tre'Quan Smith?
I mean, you and I briefly were talking about Denzel Mims before we got on here. I think he's interesting at 3K with Crowder looking like he's going to be out. But the guy I like's in the mid tier, Brandon Cooks, 5,200 I love that game. I love Watson. Watson might be my favorite quarterback on the slate, and I really like that game, which we've talked about several pieces of it already. Uh, so Jair Alexander is going to be on Will Fuller, and Cooks was going to be on King. King is out, so he's going to be on King's backup. So a really good matchup for Cooks. Even with Fuller going ham, Cooks has had two monster games the last 2 weeks as well, and I think that Houston will be able to put up points. So I really like Cooks at his price, and I think that with all this, like we have Traquan now, and we have the Seattle guys above him. We have Terry McLaurin a couple hundred above him at 58. Like I don't think anyone on DraftKings will be playing Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will keep it right near Smith at 4,100. Marquez Valdez-Scantling makes a
Same
really
game.
strong option. Yep. Uh, Obviously, we love the game. It makes sense. Houston isn't really going to cover anyone, and they're not going to get enough pressure on the quarterback to stop someone that runs deep routes like Valdez-Scantling. So he's getting a lot of air yards, and he's not going to be the target monster that like Devontae Adams is. It's just not who he is. But he's going to get probably around 5 targets, and they're going to take deep shots to him. If they connect, he's going to smash 4,100. If they don't, he's going to struggle pretty bad, and you're not going to get the salary paid off. It's a boom or bust play, which is exactly what we like for tournaments. I don't. Are you on him at all, or is that just me being like a Green Bay guy?
I mean, I don't think he's a bad play at all. I think just getting a low owned piece of that game is fine. And I mean, Aaron Rodgers will be able to throw on this defense, especially like if Aaron Jones is out. I think that heightens his like. I think that helps him throwing more. Like Joe
Mm-hmm.
Mixon being out helps Joe Burrow be able to throw even more, even though he's second in the league at pass attempts. Like that helps him throw more. I think Aaron Jones being out would help Rodgers throw more. Even though I think we might see some AJ Dillon in the second half if the Packers are winning that game. But I think that's a great play, especially at that price that is really cheap.
Yeah. At tight end, I mean, there's basically 3 levels you're going to in cash, depending on where you have to go. If you're spending up, it's going to be Travis Kelce, 6,300. If you're in the mid tier, you're probably choosing between Hunter Henry and Jared Cook at 45 and 43. And then David Njoku is 3,000. And honestly, for me, it seems weird that not everyone's just playing him in cash. I don't know. Like I know we punt tight ends more than most, but I don't know. It just seems odd that Njoku isn't like projecting to be the highest owned option, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean it's just so cheap, right? They do have Bryant, and I think they'll both be on the field. But this just sets up. I posted this in Discord as soon as I saw Hooper was out. I went in Discord. I posted that the Browns are going to showcase Njoku in this game, and then they can trade him if they want to. I don't know if they will trade him. They did pick up his option for next season before this season, but I mean, there was that whole rumor of him like he wanted traded and all this stuff. Like, there's no better time for them to increase his trade value than in a game against a horrible defense where
Yep,
they're starting tight ends out and they can throw them the ball.
completely agree. Who's like a low owned guy that you're looking at? Because I feel like tight end's kind of so concentrated that basically everyone else is going to be like super low owned, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like the chalkier options here. I think Henry's a really good play at his price. I think Cook is a fine play at his price as well. Two guys I like lower owned at tight end. First is Gronk, 4,600. Raiders defense, they're missing Jonathan Abram at safety, but not a great defense anyways. And literally no one's playing anyone from this game because it got added late. Like, I literally don't know if a single piece of this game is going to get like any ownership at all. Um,
Yeah,
so
I
I
agree
think
with that.
I think just taking him as just a lower owned piece, like he's 100 more than Henry. So that gives you a little bit of leverage. And then if you want to barf, we can look at Tyler Croft. He's 3,100. Tyler Croft is he's like the only tight end that they have right now. So all their tight ends got put on the COVID list, and he dodged that because his wife was in labor, so he wasn't there. So he's literally like he's literally like the only tight end on the roster on Sunday. I'm assuming he's going to play the entire game.
You would guess.
I don't know really
I
know
would
what else
think
they would
so.
do. So
I don't hate it, and What a lucky guy he is
What?
to, have a kid
Yeah,
and not get COVID.
yeah, that's got to be like the luckiest sex of all time. Like, imagine.
I will say Dalton Schultz. He's under 4K. Washington can't guard literally any tight end in the NFL. And it's not like Dallas is opposed to throwing to the tight end. Like I want to use Drew Sample. But what happens when Cincinnati just decides they're not going to throw it to him? Like all I basically do is take these matchups against teams that struggle against tight ends, and I use tight ends against them every week because the position is more or less so bad that getting the good matchup is the difference. But I can't do that with someone like Drew Sample, so it more or less just comes down to Dalton Schultz for me.
No, that's a good call. I like that.
That's all we have for you this week on the Perfect Pivot. If you liked our podcast, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. You can subscribe to the Karma Network on YouTube and turn on notifications, and you'll know as soon as we post any videos. Comment who you guys are pivoting to and pivoting from, because it's honestly a really chalky slate, kind of except for a wide receiver where it's gonna a lot of guys are gonna be chalky, but the chalk's going to move to a bunch of people. And that's all we have. So good luck this week, everyone.